we're on to a new unit and a new topic. This is section 2.1, and the I can statement is I can evaluate absolute value expressions. So go ahead and write the word absolute there. So we're talking about absolute value expressions. And in the warm-up, we've got two questions here. The first one is, what phrase do you use to remember the order of operations? So if you're like most people remember it with this one. They remember PEMDAS. Or they might remember a phrase, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Either way, we get to this point. The P in please, or the P here, stands for parentheses, so I'm going to put a parenthesis. The E stands for exponents, so I'm going to write a base with an exponent up above there. And then we've, of course, got multiplication and we've got division. And I'm going to put a little loop underneath those, and I'm going to write L to R from left to right. We do these in the order that we come to them from left to right. So multiplication isn't more important than division. We don't always do that first and then come back and do the division. We just do those as we come to them from left to right. So if we come across a division first, we do that first, and then do the multiplication if that comes after as we go through it from left to right. And then, of course, we've got addition and subtraction, and the same is true for those. Addition isn't more important than subtraction, so we do those in order as we come to them from left to right. So if we take a look at this expression right here, you'll notice that we do have a set of parentheses, so let's go ahead and take care of the set of parentheses. This would be 9 minus, and then we've got the 3 right there. Let's figure out what the answer is right here. We've got negative 2 minus 5, so that's negative 7, and then we've got minus 6 right here. This is a term right here, a term right here, and a term right here. The reason this is one term is because that's put together with that implied multiplication. So we do have some multiplication here, so we're going to go ahead and do that next. So we're going to have 9, and then we've got negative 3 times negative 7. That's going to be plus 21. So plus 21 right here. And then we subtract 6 from that. We're going to go ahead and do the addition right here. So we get 30. So we get 30 right there, and then we're going to subtract 6, and we end up with, let's see, we end up with 24. So 24 is the answer to that one right there. And we should all get the same answer. That's the reason we have the order of operations, so that everybody can agree on the way to do a particular problem. Okay, so let's move from that little warm-up there, and let's remind ourselves about the signs of numbers and what we're talking about when we talk about absolute value. So the sign of a number represents its direction from 0. I've got a little number line down below, and we're going to take a look at this in just a second. So the sign of a number represents its direction from 0. So if we put 0 right here in the middle, of course this is the positive direction and this is the negative direction. Positive means the number is to the right of 0. That's the way we've set this up. And negative means the number is to the left of 0. So left would be negative, right would be positive. The smaller a number is, the farther it is to the left of 0. So if we have really small numbers, now remember, if we've got a number like we've got negative 999, that actually is a very small number. It's more negative, it's further to the left. And the bigger a number it is, the farther it is to the right of 0. So just to do a little bit of practice, let's just graph a couple of these. So we've already got 0 on here, so I'm going to put a big dot where 0 is. And then we've got 5, and we've got negative 10, 20, 50, and we've got negative 999. Okay, so we need to kind of keep that in mind. There's no way we're going to scale this so we can fit negative 999 on there. So let's do this. We've got to put 50 on here, so I'm going to put 50 about right there. Okay, so there's 50. So we got that one taken care of, and we got that one taken care of. 5 is going to be about, gosh, if this was 25 right here, 5 is going to be kind of in that neighborhood right there. So I'm going to put 5 right there. Negative 10 would be about twice as far in the other direction. So I'm going to put a negative 10 right here. Okay, so we'll put a big dot for that one. We've got 20. If that's about 25, 20 is going to be about right here. Okay, so we've got that one taken care of, and I'm just going to put a 25 on there just so we can see that. So we've got those taken care of right now, and notice that the one that's negative is to the left, and all of these that are positive, those are going to be to the right. And then we've got negative 999. Well, that is a very tiny number. Or another way to say it would be is it's a big negative number. So we're going to go really far in this direction. So I'm just going to put an arrow here, and we're going to say way out there is going to be negative 999. It's going to be way down in that direction right there. Okay. All right. Now, there are times where we're only interested in the magnitude of a number. Okay. In other words, or AKA means also known as, if we say magnitude, what we're talking about there is we're talking about the size of a number. We're only interested in the size of the number. Okay. And we don't really care about the direction that it is from zero. From zero. All right. And when we're only interested in the size of the number, the magnitude of the number instead of the direction that it is, then we're talking about absolute value. So some people, when they think about absolute value, they get a little bit confused and think, oh, well, it's just always positive. Well, there's a reason that it's always positive. Okay. The absolute value of a number is its distance from zero. The absolute value of a number is its distance from zero. And since distance is always positive, when we take a trip or when we say, hey, how far did you have to go from school to home? We don't say, well, it was 3 miles there and then negative 3 miles back. We just always say that distance is positive. So since distance is always positive, the absolute value of a number is always positive. Absolute value of a number is always positive. And we use a special symbol when we're referring to absolute value, and it looks like this. It looks like two big tall bars next to the number. So I've got the variable a in here representing some number, some constant number. So if we have these bars around it, that means absolute value. So two vertical lines around the number. So we're going to find each one of the following here. So we're going to find the absolute value of 4. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put 0 on here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is right here. The question here is, how far is 4 from 0? Well, we can count the spaces. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. Again, we count the spaces. We don't count the little lines there. Okay, so the answer to this is 4. That's the answer on that one. Well, negative 8 would be down here. So let's see. There's negative 1, negative 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So negative 8 would be right here. And then we're asking, well, how far is that from 0? Well, again, count the spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The answer on this one is 8. Now you'll notice that the answers to both of these are positive, and that's because all we're doing is we're counting the distance that it is from 0. We don't care which direction, we only care how far. Okay, so let's take a look at this next one. This next one is 6. 6 would be right here. Okay, I'm going to put a dot right there. And we want to know how far is it from here to here. Well, again, count the spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The answer on this one is 6. And let's do this one right here. Absolute value of negative 6. This is asking how far is negative 6 from 0. So let's find that. Negative 6 would be right here. Again, I'm going to put a dot right there. And then we're just going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 6 spaces from 0, so the answer on that one is also 6. So both 6 and negative 6 have an absolute value of 6. They're both 6 units from 0. This distance right here is equal to this distance right here. They're both 6 units from 0. And then the last one's kind of an interesting question. What is the absolute value of 0? Okay, so if 0 is right there, it's asking how far is 0 from 0? Well, that is 0. It's right on 0. It hasn't moved at all. So its distance from 0 is 0. So when we're evaluating expressions using absolute value, we need to be really careful, and we need to use the order of operations. So that thing that we practiced in the warm-up there. And when we're doing this, what we do is we treat the absolute value bars just like we would a set of parentheses. So you can think of absolute value bars as parentheses, as grouping symbols, okay? And we need to be careful to avoid a common mistake. And we don't just say, well, because it's got an absolute value in there, that the answer is always going to be positive. That is not always the case. Now, if we just have one single set of absolute value bars, yes, the answer is going to be positive, or as you saw in this case right here, if we do get a 0 inside there, the answer is 0, okay? And we are going to get a positive answer to these. But we can't just say, oh, the expression has absolute value bars in it, so the answer is always positive. Or absolute value bars just make everything positive. Okay? We want to avoid thinking of things that way, and we really want to think about the absolute value bars. We want to think about the order of operations, and we want to think about what those mean. Okay? All right. So we're going to see that this isn't always the case, and there are times where we will get negative answers. So we just want to be aware of that. So let's take a look at a simple expression like this. This is the absolute value of negative 19. So again, how far is negative 19 from 0? Well, the answer to that is it's 19 units from 0. But take a look at this slight difference right here. This negative is outside the set of parentheses. So when we're evaluating this, we figure out what the answer is to the inside of the absolute value, and then we apply that negative to it. So this is really like -1 times whatever the answer is. So this is going to be negative, and the absolute value of 19 is 19, and that negative was outside there, so the answer on this one is -19. So notice there was an absolute value in the problem, and yet the answer still worked out to be negative. Again, another way to think of this would be -1 times the absolute value of 19. That's going to be -1 times 19, which ends up being 19, just like we said it was over here. Okay? All right, let's take a look at this one right here. We've got a set of absolute value bars. Again, we've got an expression inside there, so we want to evaluate that expression as if these were parentheses. So this is going to be the absolute value of 25 minus 6. That's going to be 19. So the absolute value of 19, as we've been seeing, is 19. Okay, so that's kind of the idea there. Now we're just going to go through and do a couple of quick examples here. So we have the absolute value of -9 minus the absolute value of 1.1. So this is going to be absolute value of 9. -9 is 9 minus the absolute value of 1.1. Okay, now 9 minus 1.1 is 7.9. If we want to double check on the calculator, we've got 9 minus 1.1 and hit enter. We got 7.9, so we're in good shape there. Absolute value of 10 is 10 minus, notice that minus is outside the set of parentheses, or the absolute value bars, and the absolute value of -24 is 24. So we got a positive answer for this, okay, kind of ignoring what we've got right here. The absolute value of -24 is 24. And then that negative was outside. That's that operation of subtracting here. So we have a 10 minus 24, so we end up with -14. Totally okay to have a negative answer on this one because that negative was outside the absolute value bars. So let's go through and see what we've got here. Absolute value of 41 is 41 minus absolute value of 71 is 71. And then plus, that's just a plain old 16. So then we're going to go ahead and do the subtraction here, and then we'll do the addition. This is going to be -30. You can double check on your calculator. And then we're going to add 16. We end up with -14. Again, interesting. Both answers had a -14 there. Okay, let's come down and take a look at this one. Again, those absolute value bars are grouping symbols, so we'll figure out the answer here. So I'm going to keep those absolute value bars. -13 minus 17, or sorry, minus 7. Same sign, we're going to find the sum. That's going to be -20 there. That negative is outside the set of absolute value bars. 10 plus 7 is 17. Okay, and I'm going to make that a little bit taller so it looks a little better. Absolute value of -20 is 20, minus the absolute value of 17 is 17. 20 minus 17 is 3. So there's our answer on that one. Okay, let's see. This is going to be, and I'm going to do a little bit of work this way. This is going to be a -7, so the absolute value of -7 right there. And then this is going to be +3, absolute value of -6, and then we're going to have a +1. Okay, so this is going to be a 7. This is going to be +3 times. Remember, the absolute value of -6 is +6. And then we're going to have the +1. So then we just have to evaluate this. So this is going to be 7 plus 18 plus 1. Let's see, 7 plus 18, that's going to be 25, plus 1 is 26. So there's our answer right there. And then, of course, we'll do this last one. This is going to be 2 times 7 minus, let's figure out what this one is. This would be -11. And then plus, again, we've got absolute value of -6, that is 6. So we've got a 14 minus 11 plus 6. 14 minus 11 is 3, plus 6 is 9. Okay, and then we've got this last one. This last one happens to have a fraction in it. So let's see, we've got 9 minus, let's see, when we put the two of these together, we have negative 7. So it's the absolute value of negative 7. That would be 7. And then we've got minus 1/2. So we've got 9 minus 7 is 2. And then 2 minus 1/2, that would be 1.5. But again, we're not going to write it as a mixed number. We're going to write that as an improper fraction. So we're going to write that as 3/2. Okay, so that's how you evaluate absolute value expressions. Really good practice with order of operations and things like that. So good luck on the assignment. I think we've covered pretty much everything.